If you're sick of talking about the NASCAR playoffs, points, all of that, I get it. I am too. But this is just going to be the storyline of the offseason. Every year we have some kind of storyline that we end up talking about for a good amount of the offseason, and it dominates the airwaves until racing gets either close or finally is back on track. And we're looking at it again. This time it is actually NASCAR. I don't know about being introspective, but NASCAR, at least in some ways, conceding on different points. At least in a way that I don't think I have ever seen them do as a sanctioning body since I started watching back in the mid-2000s. NASCAR, at least from what Adam Stern said, is looking to maybe tweak some stuff, change some stuff on bigger ends. Here's what he said. NASCAR will review its playoff format this offseason, and changes are possible as soon as next year, though a larger overhaul might need to wait until 2026 if one ended up being pursued, per people familiar. And of course, this tracks about what NASCAR had said in the words of Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps. The playoffs aren't going anywhere, at least a 10-race playoff isn't. Of course, I think that he said that to leave a door open in case they ever did need to change, that they could, but that is something that has a bit more wiggle room in typical NASCAR fashion. And when you look also, there has been a bit more talk through the week from others like Elton Sawyer, who had talked about that NASCAR was going to look about going inwards on this. Look at the playoffs, see if they needed to change stuff, tweak stuff, or just completely do away and try something different. That's something that I don't think, honestly, I can see NASCAR doing other than maybe right now at this crucial point. And it shows how big the fan backlash has been. It is why, if you're unhappy with it, say it. Be out there. Be loud. Be vocal. Because unlike a lot of other sporting leagues, NASCAR really does seem to at least see what their fans say. Whether they listen or not, that will be up to interpretation in the future. And I will say, if they make some big swing a little bit more towards a way that I would personally like, I get they'll never do full season points again as much as I would love it, but if they do a swing that's closer to that direction, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen in the near future by any means. But there's more. In the Sports Business Journal article that I implore you to read on your own, they did say a few things here. The 2025 tweaks were as listed, and there could be other tweaks on top of these. First round buys to maybe the round of 12 or round of 8 have been discussed. The viability of continuing a win and you're in, or just getting people in on points, or maybe it's not just one win that gets you in, it's multiple wins. So you have to be pretty good to get in. There's also talk about maybe having more than 4 in the final round or race for the championship. Maybe having, 5, 6, 8, however many it might be. And a multi-race final round, which I think is the biggest sticking point people have talked about with this system outside of win and you're in. And I would actually argue this one. People have talked about doing away with the current way we do things, or inverting the rounds to have a wild card race like Eric Estep, my buddy, said. And by the way, we'll be on his channel tonight for NWP, so we'll talk more about that. And then going 3-3-3. That's something that is up for debate. Now, on the 2026 front, there was a little bit. An overhaul is possible, though it's not something I think that necessarily, as much as social media is saying it's going to happen, is that possible. But this does track, I will say, with sources that I have talked to who have said that, yeah, NASCAR is very much introspective on the playoffs right now and the viability and how long they can do something like this and still bring in some fans. And I heard about this before the Martinsville deal, so I have a feeling those conversations may have changed completely. Maybe this is part of it, but I don't see really any of the solutions they give for 2025 tweaks that would necessarily fix the problems. The problems mostly came from the rounds, and, well, if you have a championship round, I think you actually open yourself up to more craziness like we saw at Martinsville. And with it being right at the end of the season in front of everybody, I could totally see the teams 20 minutes before they sign off for the entire season push at NASCAR and saying, yeah, take it away from us. What are you going to do about it? Because NASCAR's weakened themselves to that ability at this point. What's the options? Again, I would love full season points. I know that's not necessarily popular, though Jeff Gluck's poll did say something kind of similar, that it was a little more positive. You can look at that two ways. You can look at it as, well, look at this, a majority of people really like playoffs. Or you could also look at it as a majority of people really don't like the way we've went with elimination style, and we need to rein it back a little bit. So I'm going to try and take that middle ground here, and I'm going to give my solution that I think could help. And I think it mixes new with old, because there are some new things that I will say NASCAR's done for a playoff that actually I like a lot. I want to have solutions. So here's what I got. I say you have the top 12 in points at the end of the regular season make it in. Reset it to 2,000 points, and then start adding your playoff points in based on their performance during the season, with 5 points going in for a win, 1 point apiece for stage wins, and I will even add a provision that hasn't been in NASCAR for 20 years on this because of the point side of it and because of how equal a lot of the next gen era is. I'm willing to fudge on how many can be in the playoffs only if it's performance based. If they're within 100 points of the lead, I think they deserve to be in, because 100 points under this system can be made up in a 10 race format. And with that too, you open the door to people in the middle of the pack still need to perform and maybe take those chances to get wins as well to make up the most amount of points. And I think, you know what? You want to add even more to it? Add more points for wins. That is one of the biggest problems since the Lapford system that NASCAR has had. Wins don't mean enough points-wise. And personally, I know this is going to sound foreign to a lot of people. I think NASCAR has overvalued wins a bit too much. The fact that someone 35th in points can make it in off a win, too much for me. The fact that somebody winning a race, whether it be fuel mileage, super speedway, a rain out, whatever it might be, it's not solely Joey Logano focused on this, but that a win can get you to the next round or maybe going for a championship rather than pure performance, I think that's over the line. But I do think it should give you a big advantage. And if you blow that advantage, that's on you. You had, in my case here, 9 other races to get it done, because I think we should go off of that 10 race chase kind of thing. And of course, the regular season, I'll say 5th through 10th, I think it should be 1 point for 10th, up to 6 points in 5th. Then go up to 8 for 4th, 10 for 3rd, 15 for 2nd, and 25 playoff points for the regular season champion. We need to reward greatness more, but we don't need it to be completely overbearing and wipe away what everybody else has done in a season. I think that this is a nice medium. We're rewarding those who have been better all season, but we're not necessarily just handing them a championship. We're not giving them buys. They still need to perform in those weeks. You can't just take 3 weeks off and expect to be right in the fold with everybody else who's been racing their ass off that first round or first 3 races, as it may be now. And I think it addresses a couple other things, and I want to address those and also some of the weaknesses that this system will have, because every system has a weakness. First off, I want to address that this gives a larger sample size. I like that they at least could go to maybe a 3-race final round, do 1, 3, 3, 3 as the playoff finisher, but I'm not really crazy on just 3 races doing it. I still think it's too small of a sample size to really show who is good. You can see a lot of different drivers who have really good 3-race spans. I mean, a couple years ago, Michael McDowell had a great 3-race start to the season. Does he deserve to be champion if he makes it that far with craziness? No, he doesn't. I like Michael McDowell. He just doesn't. So there's that. I think it addresses a bit that you need to legitimize the championship, especially for a young generation that is very, very finicky. And I say this because, one, consistency, adding a little bit more into winning a championship on top of winning being very big, I think can do that, because You can be good in one race, you can be good in 3 races or 5 races, but it's going to be difficult for a mediocre driver, if they make it in as an 11th or 12th seed, to be able to be good for 10 straight weeks over the best of the best. And that also can be if they're going for wins or if they're playing it safe in points racing, whether it be for stages or for the finish. And you also have to add in this. I've said it in other videos that those fans that were kids growing up or teenagers during the Chase era that might have actually really liked it, which is something I've found a lot of people my age and a little younger and a little older really liking. They're now in their 20s and 30s. Prime demographic need for NASCAR, and want, of course, but need for NASCAR. So I think it also speaks to a lot of them. I think also moving that direction will help at least reassert some confidence in NASCAR leadership, that they're not just going out and swinging for the fences of entertainment. That's something else that was addressed by the Adam Stern tweet and article, is that NASCAR execs are kind of thinking maybe we went too far. Newsflash, I think you did. And there's some other things too. Stages will still matter to the very last race. It's not something we can ignore, and it gives intrigue through the entire race, especially if it's a very close championship battle. You also, I think, can prevent having meaningless races for these drivers. Buys, I get it. It's well-intentioned, but having drivers take 3 races off at a time, or winning and taking 2 races off at a time, that's just, to me, alien and foreign. I think these drivers need to be on it every single week. I don't care how good you are. You need to close it out, finish the deal like that. And also, I will say this too, it eliminates one of the biggest black eyes on the 2024 season, the waiver debate. You don't remember, the waiver debate with Kyle Larson was everywhere for about 2 weeks when he skipped the Coke 600 to race the Indy 500. And there were high-level people in NASCAR arguing that someone who I think was the best driver last year shouldn't be allowed to compete for a championship, which is just complete BS. This eliminates it. If you make it on points and you miss a race, good job. You're just that damn good. If you miss a race and you end up having that be the difference of missing your chance at a championship, should have chose NASCAR on that one. It gives importance to those regular season races for those who are still very, very good. And I think it also has more of a solid field, the best of the best racing for a championship, instead of, again, maybe 8, 10, 11 of the best, but then 5, 6, 7 stragglers who should have no business racing for a championship and are just the busy work of elimination. Now, I will admit this. The biggest flaw of this system to me, it's the schedule. It's the schedule, and it is wins. They need to mean more, which is, again, why I'd say maybe add 10 more points to the winner's total of a race rewarded points, just to give that much more emphasis to get wins in. Plus, also, the most amount of points you can make up during that would be 69, and that would be hilarious. Also, I think that the schedule part of it. I think one of the biggest reasons that Jimmie Johnson was so good under a 10-race chase, like I'm proposing, is because there was basically a static schedule from about 2004 to, I'd say, 2019, give or take. And in that time, Jimmie Johnson, Chad Knaus, and Rick Hendrick figured out how to be good at those tracks. And there were very minimal changes throughout, and of course, Jimmie Johnson was just that good too, but you had the same core 6 or 7 tracks every year. If you change up the schedule a bit more, maybe swap in 3 every year, make it important to be there, especially for the finale, well, then you can't really gauge off of just those main tracks every year because you're constantly having to shuffle in and out. There's some contractually that have to stay there, but you don't have to do it with every single track. You're going to have Gateway in one year, Pocono another, Michigan another, and it suits different drivers, yes, but you have more races that you're able to make up for that. You have, instead of, well, you should have been good in the other 2 races, well, you should have been good in those other 9, or been good in the regular season and gotten more playoff points. I think that It solves a lot of problems. It's not perfect, but I think it's a nice middle ground of consistency, of winning, and at the end of the day, legitimizing the NASCAR championship a bit more. But that's my thoughts. I want to know what you think, because I'm sure everybody has a different preference or way that they think this should go. So let me know down in the comments below. Let me know, what is your proposal, or do you think we should stick with what we have now? Let me know. All right, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. It means a ton. We'll be live tonight on Eric Estep's channel for NWP. Cannot wait until then. So, until then, have a good one.